Hello guys, once again it's Matt, and today we have another video. So let's thank our members, Overland 11B for being the full crew member. Thank you. All the Foxpay member, Igor, Yuyush, Justin Field, Diaf, LRS, Astropub, and Silami. Thank you for being the Foxpay members. And thank you all the Fishpay members. Be a member if you want to help the channel. Subscribe and let's get into it. So today we have another tier list. It was submitted, the idea was submitted by a member. So on the Discord. So yeah, let's get into it. So today we're going to talk about all the radar missiles in game and tier them on the same categories that we already did with the top tier aircraft. So power creepers, the most power creeper thing ever in game right now. Kinda OP, not great, not terrible, kinda terrible, and the trash bin. So yeah, let's talk about, but only in radar missiles today. We might do another video with the IR missiles and all other types of things. So, but this was submitted for the radar missiles. So let's start with the US because it has more missiles than everybody else. And basically, we are going to kind of go through each nation with the different types of missiles that they had according to the time frame, kind of. Obviously, the RB-71, Aspide, and Skyflash 3000, the only one in the nation, but still. So let's talk about the USA. So the USA has the most amount of missiles, and it starts with the AIM-9C. It's a missile that it can be used in the F-8, the Crusader, and I think, to be honest, it's not power creeper. But it's not great, not terrible. It's a very good missile actually. But it has its problems. So I'm going to put in not great, not terrible, just because of one thing. This is very easy to avoid with Chef. So if you have Chef, it's just pop one, and it's just really easy to avoid. The Gs are pretty alright on it, and it is basically AIM 9D, but with a radar uh, guidance, you know. So yeah, it's pretty alright, but the problem is that it is very susceptible to chaff, so it is very easy to avoid this. But it has a very long range for the BR that it's in, you know, and yeah, it can be a very reliable weapon in higher altitudes. You know, it's a lot of people like this missile, so I would say that a lot of people would put in kind of OP. But to be honest, I think it has many problems, like it doesn't have any air, ground clutter filtering, and the chaff is just way too OP against this thing. Not that it should be different, but it is just an old missile. So yeah, but starting with the Sparrow family now, we have the AIM-7C, which, to be honest, is kind of terrible to like trash bin. I mean, I'm going to put it. I mean, let's think. I'm going to put in kind of terrible because I managed to get a lot of kills with it, to be honest, but it is complicated to use. The radar on the F3H, which is the aircraft that use this missile, is just kind of bad, you know. But it is alright. It has a good range and stuff, but it doesn't have any filtering, you know. So the AIM-7C is just kind of a problematic missile, only 15 Gs of turn, very short burn time, so it doesn't have a lot of energy. So only if you actually uh, get people by surprise, you can actually get somebody with this, you know. So it is. I'm not putting trash bin because in that BR you can actually get kills with it flying high, you know. But beyond that, it's really difficult to use. But yeah, early missile, you know. And the AIM-7D, you can technically put it on the same kind of terrible kind of thing. It's basically the same missile, a little bit better, but to be honest, I'm going to put it on the trash bin just because of one reason. The aircraft that actually uses this missile, obviously, we are rating the missiles itself, but we have to also rate the aircraft that it's actually being used on because, for example, the AIM-7C, it's being used on 9.3, 9.7, 9.0. It's facing those BRs, but with the AIM-7D, we face a lot of 10.0s, 10.3s, 10.7s, 11.0s. So because it's used on the F4C, for example, the F4EJ, so it is just very problematic on the BR that it's in. and it is just a very bad missile because of that, you know. Even though it is a better missile than the AIM-7C, the BR that faces makes it very, very hard to get kills with it. I probably got 1 or 2 kills with the EJ, and all the AIM-7C kills that I got, I mean, I got a few kills with it, but it is just kind of weird to use. Depend on the BR that it's in, but it is very hard to use because of that. You know, I would put in kind of terrible because it is a kind of terrible missile, but it is just a problem with the platform. You know. Then we have the AIM-7E. This is change it. The AIM-7E is the first kind of proper missile that we have, but it's still kind of problematic. It is hard to get kills with it. I would still put in kind of terrible because it takes a while for all these missiles to actually start tracking, you know, and start turning for the target. So all these missiles are alright for very long range engagements, but like not very long range, but like 15 kilometers, 10 to 15 at least, because they take too much time to actually start turning. So for a dogfight, it's very bad. All these three, but it is better than everybody else. I mean, you can get kills with this in the BVR department. I got a kill, for example, with the F-104S the other day against an F-14 with the AIM-7E, so at 15 kilometers I think it was. So you can get kills with it. It can be sneaky, a sneak missile, but it is, I mean, the probability of kills of these missiles are just like, this is a little bit more depending on the situation. It's probably less than 10% that you can actually get kills with it. So yeah, just be careful with it. It is very hard to use these. And then we have the AIM-7E2. I would not put in kinda OP, but it is the same missile that we have in the AIM-7E, but it turns a little bit better. All these missiles, especially the AIM-7s, they don't have an inverted monopulse seeker that the Russians have, that the British and Swedish and the Italians have. So it is very susceptible to ground clutter sometimes, to notching, chaff, stuff like that. It can be more susceptible than the R24, R23, and the Aspides and Sky Flashes, but it's still it is an improvement over the AIM-7E. It is still worse than the Sky Flash because of the seeker. As I said, it doesn't have an inverted monopulse seeker. But it's still a very early missile, you know, it doesn't have a lot of energy, so in longer ranges it is still kind of not that great. But the advantage over the AIM-7E is that it can turn very quickly, being a dogfight missile, so you can actually use it in lower distances, you know. As I said, it has its problems with the seeker and stuff, but it is usable, you know. You would get, for me at least, I have like 30 to 40, maybe 50% hit rates with this missile, so it's a ton better than the AIM-7E, the normal one, you know. Going for the top of the line of the Sparrows, the AIM-7F, I would put it on probably between these two, to be honest. I would put in the power creeping because of the range, but in kinda OP because of the seeker still. So to be honest, I will put it on the power creep just because it has a lot of energy, and it is basically the missile that has the most amount of energy of the normal semi-active missiles, just excluding the AIM-54. So in longer ranges is the best missile of all the semi-active ones. And it has a lot of, because of that, it has the burner, you know. It is basically the same seeker as the E2 still, has same amount of Gs and stuff like that, so this would make it a little bit worse, you know. If we get more advanced aircraft, I will put this in kind of OP, and then after that in not great, not terrible, depending on the aircraft that we see. But for now, it is kind of a power creep because you can actually get a ton of kills from very, very long ranges, and it still has a lot of energy. You know, we can get a lot of kills with it, but it is just complicated to use sometimes against ground clutter and stuff like that. But the differences between it and a Skyflash, for example, are minimal in the Seeker. Not minimal, but it is, I mean, you can see the difference, you can feel the difference, but it is not something that completely destroys the missile, you know. So it is very, very good, very long range. It's the longest range that we have in the semi-active ones, and because of the burner and then a booster type of thing, it will make this missile a lot better than the other ones in the sense of energy wise to actually turn and change directions and stuff like that. So yeah, pretty good one. And then we have the AIM-54. The AIM-54 is another one that, I mean, there's some stuff that it's a power creep, but it's not that much as well in certain stuff. I would say that it is kind of OP. I would not put it in the power creep department, just because even though you have the longest range of all, being a Fox 3 missile, which is always a very good thing, in normal RB battles, it is not that useful just because we have such small maps that you will see this missile coming from a long, long mile. So this missile can be very, very OP if the burner is already out, you know, because it is a Fox 3, so you don't have to maintain the proper lock until the impact of the missile, and it has a very, very long range. But because we have mostly more uh, shorter maps, you know, it tends to be kind of not that good because you know that the missile is there and it doesn't turn, it doesn't pull that much G's, that many G's. So it makes it so that it's kind of hard. If we get more EC maps and stuff like that, I would put AIM-54 on the power creep just because after the burn is done, it is very hard to know if the missile is coming for you. You have to actually really pay attention for your RWR, and even with that, you normally don't have too much time to evade the missile because it is being flying. It's flying on like Mach 4, Mach 3, Mach 4. So it is a very fast missile, and at the end of the burn, it is just invisible. So because we don't have a proper RWR, advanced RWRs, this missile can be very OP, but just in these C maps, you know. In normal maps, I just think that it's not very uh, capable, you know. So it is in the small maps, maybe not great, not terrible, it's alright. And in the EC maps and simulator, it's a power creep, a hell of a power creep. But because we have so many small maps, even in simulator, I would say that it's just kind of OP, can be OP in certain situations. Okay, so these are the American missiles. Let's get to the Soviet ones. So first of all, we have the R3R. I would put it back in the day. I would put it in kind of OP because nobody else knew that this missile was a thing back in the day. But right now, everybody knows that this missile is a thing, and everybody knows the aircraft that actually use them. So I would put it probably in kind of terrible. It is a hard missile to use sometimes. It is very good in head-ons, but beyond that, it is just not that good. And um, it does turn a lot less than the AIM-9C. It does have a lot less burn time. It's basically an AIM-9B, you know. I would not put in the trash bin because the head-on factor, if the guy doesn't know that you're there, it can be a very effective weapon. But beyond that, it is hard to get kills with it if it's not on a head-on. So basically, it's kind of terrible, usable, but kind of terrible, you know. Then we have the R-23, the first of the longer range missiles that we receive in War Thunder that the Soviets had. The Soviets had many, many more missiles than these, but the aircraft that use them, we don't have it. So the comparable missiles to 60s Sparrows, for example, we don't have it in game. So we don't have the K-8, the R-98, we don't have the R-55 even, and many, many other missiles that we should get depending on the aircraft that are added to War Thunder. But yeah, the R-23, it is, I think, even better than AIM-7E2. Back in the day, at least, I got more kills with the R-23 than with the E2. But because of the Seeker, you know. But to this day, the R-23 can be very difficult to use because everybody kind of knows that BVR stuff is happening, so it is very easy to maneuver around this missile. It doesn't have a very long burn time, has a lot of energy, but tends to take a time to actually turn well. So yeah, I think it's a better missile overall to the E2, for example, but it just tends to take a while to turn, which makes it problematic, you know. So it is a very okay missile in the longer ranges, 15, 10, 15 kilometers. But in shorter ranges, the E2 is way superior. But it is not a terrible missile. I think I got probably like 40-50% to kill rates with these back in the day. Today it's probably lower, but still I think it's very usable. You just have to learn how to use the radar on the MiG-23 and basically the missile itself. You know, I still think that it's easier to use the R-23T, obviously, but it is a usable missile, especially in bigger maps. That the missile has the time to actually start turning and you are far away from the target. So yeah, the energy on the missile is pretty alright. So yeah, the R-24, I think it's a power creep. I mean, this missile is just amazing, especially in shorter ranges. It's probably the best missile in the game, even though it turns to turn less than the Aspide. It has so much energy initially that it has like 3 seconds of burn time, I think, something like that, 2.85, something like that. But it has the most powerful engine of all the missiles in the game. So it just have a lot of energy initially, and then it goes stealth, and nobody knows that the missile is going. So I had like, I don't know, 80 to 90% hit rates with this missile back in the day. Today is probably like 70 to 80. It is a very, very usable missile, both in longer ranges and in shorter ranges. I still think the AIM-7F has obviously more capable. It is more capable in range, you know, in 40, 30, 40 kilometers, the AIM-7F will be better. But it is just, the Seeker is just amazing. It just goes for the target. It really doesn't care about chaff sometimes. And it is way superior to the Seeker of the AIM-7F. The only problem is that it doesn't have the far range capabilities of an AIM-7F, but at shorter ranges I would say it's the best missile in the game just because of its energy and its Seeker, that it's very, very good. So yeah, the Soviets have the R-24, very, very good. Even with the radar that the MLD has, that it's not the most amazing radar ever, it can be very effective. I think then the French, obviously the Soviets only have these 3 missiles. Let's get to the French. The French have probably the worst missiles in the game, to be honest. I think the R530 can be usable because of its BR sometimes, you know. I think it's a more usable missile than the AIM-7C, obviously, and AIM-7D, but it is a little bit less than the AIM-7E. And yeah, I would put it maybe right in the middle, to be honest, but I would say that I get kills with it from longer ranges, from people that are flying really high. So I would not say that it's trash beam material, but it is problematic. You know, I think it is a missile that there is not much reason to use this beyond the uh, instead of the R530E, which is the IR guided, but it's still. To be honest, I think, I don't know. I'm going to put it in the trash bin just because the chaff is just awful on this thing, and it doesn't have a lot of range, and a lot of the burn time is long, but the power is very, very small. So I don't know. I would just consider it a very bad missile, but it can be usable sometimes, but not really though. You know, it's really problematic missile. Then we have the Super 530. If we would consider the fact of the missile itself, beyond forgetting that it's completely trash to the chaff department, I would put it on the power creep because the performance of this missile is one of the best in the game in the short range. But because of the chaff problem and being a top tier missile, I would put on the trash bin. The thing is, one chaff and this missile is dead. You know, it just goes for the chaff. It doesn't matter if you try to get a lock, it doesn't have enough time to get that. So it is just really hard to use. You get like, I mean, it's just a bad missile because of that. You know, the performance of the missile is amazing at shorter ranges. Amazing, amazing. It's really good missile. But if the guy shoots a chaff, you are done and the missile is dead. It's just nothing else you can do. So because of that, I will put it on the Super 530F, okay, on the trash bin. You know, very complicated missiles to use. Then we have this. I will say about the Skyflash first, but I will talk about both of them together. So we have the Skyflash Pre-Temp 3000 in the game, which is the pre-tornado version of the Skyflash, and the RB-71, which are basically the same missile in game. But yeah, they are very okay missiles. I would not put it on the power creepers, but they are definitely kinda OP. They have a better seeker than the E2, being a E2 but with a better seeker. So they have the inversed monopole seeker, which means that they are less susceptible to ground clutter, to chaff, to many types of notching and stuff like that, which means that the missile is superior to the E2, has the same energy, but the Seeker makes it a very good weapon, a great weapon even, as a short range weapon. It's even better at short ranges than the M7F. I would not put on the power creepers just because of the range. The M7F has such a large range that and energy that the Skyflash 3000 and the RB71 would just lose for that. And yeah, it is just a very, very problematic missile in the sense of energy. It's difficult to get kills beyond 15 kilometers with it. You can get it. I got some about 20, 15, but the guy really doesn't have. I mean, he really has to not know that you are there. Like, really doesn't have to know. It's the only way that these missiles can be uh, guided until a far range. Obviously, we have the R71, which would be a tiny bit better because of the platform that is being used. The Vegan has a way superior radar than the British Phantoms, but it's still it is kind of problematic on the energy department. So it's a very good short range weapon until 10 kilometers, but beyond that, it's complicated to use. So I would put in kind of OP. And then we have the Aspide 1A. If this missile had, it's basically a Sky Flash, but with a better burn time, it's a different design. It's an Italian design based on the M7, but still it is a different missile. But I would put this missile itself, I would put in the power creeps. This missile has the second best range out of all these missiles. It has 80 kilometers of range, very similar to the M7F. He has an inversed monopole seeker. It has 3 seconds of burn time of a very powerful engine as well. So it is very capable. At medium ranges, I would say it's worse, and longer ranges to the M7F, but way better than the Skyflash and the RB71 at medium ranges. And even at short ranges, it could be even better. But I would not put on the power creepers because of the platform again. I would say the same about the M7D. The platform of these missiles is just it's complicated. The F104S ASA has a terrible radar, a very difficult radar to use sometimes, and the J8 even worse. So yeah, even the J8 doesn't have even an MTI or anything like that. So it is just a normal radar with no ground clutter filtering like the MiG-23s at least. So it is just a very bad radar, and the F104 has its problem as well with the radars. So it just makes it hard to use this missile effectively. But the missile itself is just amazing. It's really good. But because of it would be comparable even to the Skyflash 6000, maybe this 6000 would be better. The 6000 would be better than any of these missiles, to be honest, but which is the latest Tornado version of the Skyflash. But it is right there with the R24 and the M7F, even better than the M7F at certain situations, even better at the R24 in certain situations. But because of the platforms and the radars that you use, it is a difficult missile to be used effectively. Jesus. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to let me know in the comments. This is it basically. So the only power creepers that we have is the M7F and the R24R. If we get an R27 dispatch, this would be even higher. And an M7M obviously as well, stuff like that would be even better. The M54 would be, as I said, a power creep, but it's just the way that the maps work right now. So don't mind me with that. And yeah, basically this is my tier list of the radar missiles. If you want to see more stuff like that, leave it in the comments and let me know your opinion. What would you change in my set that I have here? I know a lot of people have biases, including me. So I tend to like some of the Soviet stuff, for example, because I love the Soviet designs. But some people like the American ones. So let me know in the comments what you think about these missiles and the tier list that I did. And I see you guys on the next one. Make sure to subscribe, and bye guys. See ya.